Here we are again, boys and girls. This is Sandy. It is January the 26th, and it is cold here in Georgia. We just had the ice storm come through yesterday, and we were very fortunate. We didn't have any power outages here at my house or here at the shop. There was people in the area that did have some power outages, had a few trees down, but I think we came out very blessed in the deal. So I want to thank the Lord for that. I've been thinking a lot about these hunters that come in early archery season and they're checking prices and stuff like that, and I'll ask them why ain't they out there hunting, and they'll say, oh, it's just too hot to hunt, and I kind of have a weird attitude about that. The deer are out there year round, when it's hot, when it's cold, whatever. They gotta move, they gotta eat, they gotta do what deer do. And these hunters that complained and didn't go hunting when it was hot, every one of them should be up early in the mornings, getting out there and hunting while it's cold. Now they'll turn around and they'll complain, oh, it's too cold to go hunting. Well, first you said it was too hot, now it's too cold. You ain't a real hunter. If you're in that category of people, you ain't a real hunter. And I guess that kind of goes along with the way things are with baiting and trail cameras and all that. There's not too many real hunters left out there. Everybody puts the corn out and the cameras out and they will see what's coming in and all that stuff. Now they got the cameras that'll send the pictures straight to your phone, so you know immediately when you have something come through. So I think what a lot of people need to do is they need to go hunt some management areas that don't allow baiting. You can still put your trail cameras up if you want to. But I've known a lot of people that's lost trail cameras in management areas because people will steal them. And that's a terrible thing to think that hunters would steal another hunter's equipment. But I have seen them steal tree stands. I've seen them steal trail cameras. One guy had a trailer that he had chained to a tree so it would be there when he did harvest something, and somebody come along and stole the trailer. He had it padlocked to a tree, and they come along and stole the trailer. So hunters, if you're doing that, please stop, because it puts a black eye on everybody. And if you're a hunter that sees that happening, and you know it's happening, turn them in. Let's get this lawless bunch of crap out of the hunting industry. I really wish these guys would get out and hunt in this cold, the ones that complained about it being hot earlier. If you're not willing to do that, you need to just hush. And next time deer season starts, just get out there and hunt. If you don't want to hunt in the cold, that's when you need to be hunting. If you don't want to hunt in the heat, now's when you need to be hunting. Me, I just like to hunt, and I go when I can. Doesn't matter what the heat is or how cold it is. This weather, they've drained the lake back down, so you can't really fish from the bank down at Phil's Landing. So we're kind of on hold on all that stuff till we get enough rain to come in, kind of fill the lake back up. And I'll go down there when that happens and try to see if I can't get another crappie or two. I caught that one. I think that was back on the 17th of January. So y'all just look out after each other. This weather's really bad. It's really cold. It's supposed to be down in the teens for the next, I think, 3, maybe 4 nights. Then I think it starts inching back up a little bit. Of course, this is wintertime, so this is kind of what you expect during wintertime. But in Georgia, everything is really strange if you're not from here. My granddad used to always say, well, if you don't like the weather in Georgia, just give it a couple of days. It'll change. So that's kind of the point that I'm at right now. People complaining about one thing and another. If you don't like the weather, just wait. It'll change. I don't know when the water's going to come back up. I don't know what the water temperature is right now after all this cold stuff. I didn't get a lake elevation or temperature report before I got on here and started doing this. I'm hoping things will do good. I've had a couple of reports from some friends of mine that have been doing pretty good out trolling for white bass, hybrids. Some stripers are getting a lot of spotted bass, a few largemouth trolling. It's really cold, so you gotta dress warm and be prepared for it. I'm going to try each day to try to do a little something and put on here. Hopefully y'all will look at, like, share, subscribe if you hadn't subscribed. Let's see if we can get this thing taken off. Once I kind of get more used to what I'm doing, I hope they'll get better and better, because right now they could be pretty dull, but I'm trying to think of another little story I could just do a short on here, and y'all might enjoy. I have an 8-pointer on the wall. I'll tell you about this one. I named it David. And I shot this deer. Well, let me give you a little background before I get into all that. Me and my buddy, David Driscoll, we were working down at Frog Car building railroad cars, welding and all that stuff, heavy steel work. And him and his brother-in-law had got into a hunting club down in South Georgia, down in Marion County. And his brother-in-law had somehow broke his leg right before gun season came in. Well, David didn't bow hunt, and neither did Jeff. And David come to work almost in a panic, because they'd already paid their dues for the club. And the people that was on the club when they paid their dues had contacted David and told him that most everybody on the club was going to move to another property, pack up their camps and all that, and move to another property. They would only be David and Jeff, and I think 4 more guys, 2 in one camp, 2 in another camp, and it was 1,500 acres. So there was only going to be like 6 of us on the property, or 6 of them on the property. Well, David got to work, and he was just in a panic. He come down where I was working at, and he said, "We need to talk at break. I need to talk to you about something at break." And I went, "Well, okay." I'll see you at break. So when break come, we both went to the break room. We were sitting there, and he said, man, I got a problem. I said, well, what's the problem, David? He said, Jeff, my brother-in-law. He said, you know, I told you me and him got in a hunting club. I said, yeah. You told me y'all got in a hunting club. He said, well, he said, Jeff somehow broke his leg, and he's not going to be able to go hunting at all this year. He's got to have some kind of surgery, couple of different surgeries on it and all that. So he's going to miss out on hunting at all. And we've done paid our dues and everything down there. And I don't want to go down there by myself. And I said, well, okay, so how can I help? He says, well, do you want to go down there hunting with me? And I said, well, listen, I ain't got the money to pay the dues to get in the club down there. He said, no, the dues are already paid. He said, it's paid up through this deer season. He said, there's only one little catch. He said, nobody down there has ever met Jeff. David had went down there and met with him. Jeff trusted him to, if it looked good and all that stuff, to pay the dues and all that and get them signed up. So he said, if you go down there hunting with me, you're going to have to go down there as Jeff. Not Sandy, Jeff. And I went, wait a minute. I don't have to pay any dues, but if somebody hollers Jeff, I got to answer to Jeff. He went, yeah. He says, I'm planning on going down every other weekend and hunting. And I went, well, okay. I says, I can probably do that. So I come home, kind of got things situated, and I told Mom and Dad about the conversation me and David had. Me and David had been doing some fishing and stuff together. And Daddy got a big chuckle out of it, and he said, well, Jeff, have a good time. So I started going down there with him hunting. Well, we went down every other weekend. And David, he had killed like 5 or maybe 6 does. He had this one spot that he'd get, I don't know, probably 30, 35 feet up in a pine tree and sat there, and he could see down in these spots, and he'd killed either 5 or 6 does. And I had hunted all season. And I hadn't even seen a deer. Not the first one. And I'd hunted a lot of different places trying to figure it out, you know, first time on the property. And David, he found a spot, went up in a tree, and just got lucky and picked a good spot right off the bat. So that's where he hunted all year. I hunted several other places. And it was coming up on the last weekend of deer season. And it was already closed in the northern zone. We had 2 zones back then. We had the northern zone and the southern zone. Well, it had closed on January the 1st in the northern zone. And it was supposed to close on January the 7th, I believe it was, in the southern zone. And on January the 6th, David was wanting to go back down there for the last weekend. And I done been down there a lot and hunted a lot down there, and I hadn't seen anything. So I really wasn't planning on going down there. And David started on me on Monday, the week before that last weekend. He said, you going down there with me, ain't you? I said, no, I don't think so. I said, I've hunted down there all year. Hadn't seen nothing. I'd killed 3 up around here, up around Canton. So I had meat in the freezer, so it wasn't like I was desperate to get some meat in the freezer. And he said, oh, come on, man, you got to go to last weekend. He said, this will be the weekend you'll get one. So he kept on all week at breaks and lunch and all that stuff, just hounding me about going down there. So I finally told him, on Thursday, I said, okay. I'll go down there with you this weekend, but my heart ain't going to be in it. He says, come on, man. He says, you go down there with me. You kill a big buck, and I'll drag it out for you. And I went, well, okay, that sounds kind of reasonable. Not that I was really thinking he was going to be straining himself at all on the very last weekend in the southern zone. And we got down there, and I went to one spot that I had hunted before that morning. Didn't see nothing. So it was Saturday evening. We was going back in after eating lunch and taking rest and all that stuff. So we went back in, and I parked my truck. And David said, all right, now here's the deal. You kill a big one, you kill you a good buck. He says, I'll come drag it out for you. So I said, all right, sounds like a deal to me. So I went back down to the first place that I'd ever hunted. And I hadn't seen any sign. Well, I did see one real good game trail going away from me that was back in behind some big trees. And I set up in this spot. There was some old terraces. The land used to be farmed, and they hadn't farmed it in a long time. It had pine trees on it that were 2.5 feet in diameter, but the terraces were still there. So I backed up a couple of times when I went down there and kind of dug me out a spot in this terrace, and decided I would just sit right there and hunt and see if I seen anything. Well, I had a old pair of cotton gloves, and I took that old pair of cotton gloves, and I had 2 little bushes on either side of me, and I turned them palm up in the bushes, and I had a bottle of Tink 69, and I poured about a half a bottle on one glove and half a bottle on another glove, and I figured, well, if there's any rutting going on, they'll be, coming in there before long, in a secondary rut or third rut, whatever it was. And I'm sitting there just enjoying the day. It was a good, comfortable temperature, not hot, not real cold. And I was just sitting there enjoying the day. And I looked over and down this one little ridge. It was a real thick ridge. I seen deer legs coming down that ridge. I couldn't see the deer. I could just see the legs, but it was coming down that ridge. And I had hit my grunt call a couple of times before that. And I couldn't see it, and it went in behind these trees that were just big pine trees. And they were spaced out to where it almost looked like a piece of paneling. And he went in behind them trees, and that's where the game trail was at that went dead away from me. So I sat there when he went in behind them trees. I got my gun up, and I got ready hoping he'd come out on the other side of the trees. And he stayed in behind them trees probably 15 minutes. And I had figured that whatever deer it was, I got on that game trail and went dead away from me and was gone. Because it had been about 15 minutes since I lost sight of the legs because it went in behind them trees. Sorry about putting my hand up in front of the camera, but I have a tendency to talk with my hands. But I kept sitting there, and I noticed some movement on the edge of one of the trees. So I picked my rifle up, and I looked through the scope, and I went right up the edge of that tree, and all I could see was the left eye and a horn sticking out. I thought first the horn was like a limb off of another old dead tree or something. And then he moved his head, and the horn moved when he moved his head. And I went, my goodness, that's a buck, and that's a good buck. And instead of getting super excited, which is my normal, I got super calm. I mean, just as calm as I could be. And I took my gun, and I got on the tree, and I figured about where his chest was at. So I sat up and I got real steady, and I said, now if he'll take just a step or two out from behind that tree, I'll let him get about a foot out from the tree and I'll pull the trigger. Well, he took a step or two and he stopped, and I don't think he was 2 feet out from the tree, because I couldn't have missed that tree by much more than a half an inch. And I shot, and when I shot, he came running right toward me. Well, not directly toward me, kind of toward me and off to my right in front of me. And he stopped down in front of me about 30 yards. And I have a habit of when I shoot, I go ahead and chamber another round while the sound of the shot is echoing. The deer have never looked at me, even other deer in the area. If I shoot one doe, they never look at me when I'm chambering that other round, because they're still hearing the echoing of the shot. But you got to do it quick. And I did that, and it bowed up and stopped right in front of me. Well, it was fixing to fall over, but my mind was racing. And it was rocking back and forth. So, in my mind, it was fixing to load up and take off again. So, I got my gun back on it, and I shot again. I shot him a second time, and he kicked his back feet, and he done a flip, almost like when you shoot a jackrabbit. How a jackrabbit or a rabbit will jump and kind of flip backwards. Well, that's exactly what he done. And he flipped backwards and hit the ground. And when he hit the ground, I seen them horns on it. And when he laid his head down, the head didn't lay down on the ground like I was used to, because I wasn't used to shooting big deer. I sat there and I looked at it, and I couldn't believe it was laying there. I couldn't believe I got it. And I kept sitting there, and I sat there for about 10 minutes before I ever even moved. And then I said, well, I need to go check and make sure it's dead. So I got up, and I was so nervous about it. I would pick up a pine cone or a stick or whatever, and I'd take 2 or 3 steps, and then I would throw the stick or pine cone and hit the deer with it to see if I could get it to jump up, and then I'd pick my gun up right quick because I didn't want to lose this deer. And then I'd pick me another stick up and go down another 4 or 5 steps and throw it again, pick my gun up right quick. But anyway, I made my way all the way down there to it and looked at it, and it had, I didn't measure it right then, but I knew it had like a 19-inch spread on the inside. And I thought, wow, that's the biggest deer I've ever killed. And it was, and still is. So I went back and I started rounding my stuff up to take it back up to the road and to wait on David to get there, because I knew he heard me shoot. And I heard him get to the truck, and he put his stuff in the truck, and then he hollered, Sandy, was that you that shot? I went, yeah, it was me. Bring the truck. He says, all right. So he got in my truck, drove it up there to where I was at, and he said, well, what did you get? I said, I got a buck, and I got a good buck. I said, it's got a 19-inch spread if it's got an inch. And he went, oh, now you're exaggerating. He said, you're lying. I went, no, sir. I said, come on. I said, I ain't even field dressed it yet. I'm going to take my knife down, field dress it, and we'll go from there. He went, all right. So we went down in there, and we got to it. He picked it up, picked the horns up, and looked at it, and all that stuff. And he stuck his hand out. He said, congratulations, you SOB. Except he said the words. I'm not going to elaborate on what he said, because I don't want to get in trouble. And I said, you can call me anything you want to call me. I said, you can't make me mad right now for nothing. And so I got my knife out, and I field dressed it. Wiped my knife off on my pants leg. I folded my knife up. It was a skinning knife, but it was a folding knife. And I stuck it in my pocket. Says, all right, I'll see you back at the truck. And I started walking up toward the truck. He says, what do you mean you'll see me back at the truck? I said, well, you promised that if I killed a big buck, you'd drag it out for me. He went, oh, come on, you're not serious, are you? I said, yeah, that's what you said. I'll see you back at the truck. After I went about 30 yards, maybe, something like that. I turned around. I said, no, man, I couldn't do that to you. I said, I got too much energy anyway. I need to burn some of it off because I was really jacked up. And we got a hold of it, started dragging that thing out through them thick sawbriars and brush and all that. And I'd trip on something and fall down. I'd holler, keep going, keep going. And then about the time I'd catch up to him, get 3 or 4 steps, he'd fall down. He'd holler, keep going, keep going. We did that all the way out to the road. And it was a good deer. I'm talking about a really good deer. I'll give y'all a quick look at it. That's it. Which, you can't really see it too good from that angle. Well, let me move over here. I think you can see it pretty good right there. But that was it. That's the one I called David, because David was with me when I got him. And David has been called to the Lord. So that's a way I honor him too for being my friend. And doing all the hunting and fishing we did. So just thought I'd tell y'all that story. And it just warms my heart when I tell it. Y'all remember to thank the good Lord for all your blessings. And y'all make sure you keep your aim true and your line tight. And we'll see you next time. Sandy's Outdoors. 8896 Knox Bridge Highway in Canton, Georgia, 30114. Shop number is 770-479-4588. If y'all need me, give me a holler. We're out.